You guys, can you hear me?
Yes.
Excellent. For some reason, I'm on here twice, but who knows?
Question for Nicole is she going to record this?
I am recording.
Thank you.
Excellent. We're at the 2-minute mark.
I'm so excited. This is our Courage presentation. I was so excited to see all those teachers online. My mom was a teacher, and I love working with teachers.
Same here. We still have people registering and signing up. Yeah, this is very well attended today. Oh, there we go, Allegra. There you go. All right, we're 15 seconds. Mark it down. We have 10. 5 seconds. All right, everyone. Good afternoon. Welcome to our Choose Love for the Workplace webinar. Your hosts today are my colleague Allegra Jordan and me, Jerry Alina, the National Director of Choose Love for the Workplace. Allegra is a leadership coach with the Choose Love movement. She's worked in community building in 17 countries around the world. She has an MBA from Harvard. She's a corporate leadership coach from Georgetown University, and my cousin. So, hi, Allegra. How are you?
So excited to be here. Thanks so much, Jerry. I can't wait to talk about courage today with our audience.
Excellent. No, absolutely. So I've been with the Choose Love movement since its beginning, where I served on the board while I was in the financial services sector, but you're new to the movement. So tell us, why are you part of the Choose Love movement?
I love the simple formula that the Choose Love program has to take your personal power back, to put love where there's maybe an angry thought. It's just wonderful. And I'm so excited to be joining you because I believe in it.
Excellent. Well, thank you for your time today, Allegra, and welcome to everybody that's joined us from around the country. Today, we're going to talk about courage. We're going to talk about it because a lot of people told us they had fear. So courage can help you take your personal power back in this pandemic. So over the next hour, here's what we're going to discuss. We'll go over a few housekeeping rules. We'll talk about the Choose Love mission, our courage during COVID-19, the power of positive purpose, optimism in the face of COVID-19, and how you can be part of the solution. I'll try that again. So how you can be part of the solution. We'll actually practice some skills that you can use to put the formula in action and let you know that the formula is rooted in the latest neuroscience and some of the oldest wisdom. It's been taught to more than 1 million people in all 50 states and 70 countries, 17 of which Allegra has done community building in. So with that, we'll start right off. So with some housekeeping. All right, we want you to get comfortable. We're going to be here for about an hour. Sit upright. You'll need a pen and some paper. We want you to mute your microphone. The program is an hour long, and we do have a chat set up so that you can ask questions, and we can answer them for you while we go through this. So with that.
As a note, what we're going to do, Jerry and I are both going to mute our cameras so that we can focus on the presentation.
Right, absolutely. So with that, that takes us to slide 4, I believe now, right? Here we go. So let's talk a little bit about the Choose Love movement. We were founded in 2013 as a result of the shooting at Sandy Hook. So in December of 14th of 2012, our founder, Scarlett Lewis, her son, Jesse, was killed in the massacre at Sandy Hook. My family also lost Jesse. We were very close to the Lewis family. Our oldest sons, Scarlett's son JT and my son Jordan, were best friends since they were in Cub Scouts. And they used to have dinner with us at least twice a week. We used to see them very often, and it was devastating. As Scarlett was going back to her house to get clothes for Jesse's funeral, she saw written on their chalkboard in Jesse's handwriting the words nurturing, healing, love. And so at his funeral, when Scarlett spoke, she said this started because someone had an angry thought. And she wanted people to, for that day, to turn an angry thought into a loving thought. That is now the mission of the Choose Love movement. We not only teach you to turn an angry thought into a loving thought, but we teach essential life skills, emotional and social learning to children and adults around the world. And we do that by what we call the Choose Love formula. Courage plus gratitude plus forgiveness plus compassion and action equals choosing love. And this is what we teach. It's our consistent message. It takes courage to respond with love, to be grateful when things don't go our way, to forgive even if the person who hurt us isn't even sorry, and to step outside our busyness, compassion, and action to help someone else. But we always have a choice. And these are the tools and skills that you can use more intentionally for the rest of your life, personally and professionally, every day. So we teach what we call next generation emotional and social intelligence. It starts, the heart of it is the Choose Love formula. And around it, we teach post-traumatic growth and resilience, social and emotional learning, character education, neuroscience, mindfulness, a growth mindset, and positive psychology. And whether it's yourself, in classrooms, in schools, homes, businesses, and communities. So life changes. One tradition says that there's suffering in life. But that changes too. And we don't need to be loyal to our suffering. Suffering does end. And in that end of suffering is an opportunity for growth. We're glad that Scarlett found an opportunity for growth. When her son died, he was just 6. She was a stay-at-home mom. She had no PhD. He was starting a movement that would eventually reach, as our latest count, I believe, 1.7 million people. And Allegra, as I recall, 11 years ago, that now you were going through the ringer.
I was, and you were one of my good friends during that time. About 11 years ago, I went through a divorce and my job disappeared when my business unit changed its focus. And it was a really tough and dark time in my life, but I learned a lot and am now the happiest I have ever been by a long shot, no question. It was seriously tough medicine 11 years ago, but today I can say it was worth it.
So, as we start our presentation today, we want to check in with how you're feeling. So if you're participating in this webinar, we'd like you to write a number. This is a chart similar to what you'd find in the doctor's office on how do you feel. 1 is terrible and 10 is great. So just note where you are, and we want to see if that number can shift over the next hour. Now I'm about a 6, Allegra. Where are you at?
We had some technology stuff going on when we first tuned in. You and I are both new to this technology. And so I was at a 6. I'm kind of at a 5.5. So thanks for asking. And I look forward to seeing how that shifts or if it does shift during the next hour.
And it's okay that you feel that way. We're for the participants out there, we're all new to pandemic in America, and there's no one way to pandemic. So however you're pandemicking, we understand. Everyone is going to pandemic differently. So during this pandemic, it's probably safe to say that we're all way outside our comfort zone. None of us know what the future is going to look like, And we're probably drinking coffee as if the answer is at the bottom of the cup. So for today, we want you to put down the coffee cup. Definitely put down the coffee cake you baked last night. Drop the potato chips. The answers aren't there. What we do have the opportunity to do is turn to a solution that solves problems. So for the next hour, we're going to talk about the choose one element of the Choose Love formula, and that's courage. Now, when I say courage, I'm talking about the willingness to work through obstacles despite embarrassment, fear, reluctance, or uncertainty. Courage is one of the big virtues, and it's often considered the gateway to a good life. Without courage, you can't be competent. You can't do the job that needs to be done, but it's neutral. Courage can promote good ideas or bad ideas. And we'll talk a little bit about that today too. So you need good judgment too. And you need to have courage in the right amount. Too little courage is called cowardice. You run away from a challenge. Too much courage is called recklessness, and you can take foolish risks. So courage in the right amount is stepping outside your comfort zone. So thoughts and beliefs, they're everywhere right now. Pandemic thoughts are cropping up. Like we said before, pandemics are unusual in modern America. We have no recent experience in our lifetime to draw from, and they play to our basic instinctual fears. So in order to survive, our economy has been upended. Our lives have been upended. And the sudden and unexpected adjustments that we've had to make are very difficult. So if you're joining us today, maybe your job is in jeopardy or it's changed dramatically, you're working from home, or you've been laid off. Maybe the people that you are quarantined with are addicted to drama, and it's very difficult to be quarantined with them. It can be overwhelming. The reality is we've lost control of many things right now, and people can feel overwhelmed by negative emotion. But life is about much more than fear.
One of the statues I really love in this world is called World Traveler. Here we see this world traveler, a statue in Marseille, France, and where his heart is, there is nothing. Sometimes we lose heart. Courage comes from the French word cœur or heart. It means full-hearted. And when we lose heart, we need to find a way to get that back. We need to fill that space back in with courage. And that's what we're going to talk about because we all need it right now.
So we agree that this is a big challenge, but courage isn't new to you. Can you remember a time when you showed courage? So let's take a few minutes. What was that time? What did you do? And how did you deal with that fear? So let's take a couple of moments and actually write that down. So I told you to have a pen and a sheet of paper. So let's take a moment to use that pen and paper to write this down. Now, sometimes we get worried or anxious and we can forget just how courageous we can be, but we all have it in us.
Jerry, sometimes when we share our courage reflections, we get this inner voice in our head that reminds us of how courageous someone else was. And we start comparing our courage stories. Hey, I'm writing down my courage time. Maybe I had courage at a meeting yesterday, or I told somebody, maybe they were in charge, that the grading scale they used for my classroom was really not good enough for what we needed to do. And that took me a lot of courage. But my courage isn't like someone else's courage. Here's a gift that I got from a former slave in Uganda. And this woman was brought up by the United Nations to share about the pain of Africa's children. It's not an honor that anybody seeks when they start out life. But my friend in Uganda had been a slave for 8 years. And she was one of the highest profile slaves of the Lord's Resistance Army, which was a terrible terrorist group that is still around. It plagues Central Africa and East Africa. She was marched barefoot and half-starved through the bush and jungle until she escaped after 8 years. So when I met her, I was in a tough spot that we mentioned. I was going through a divorce, losing my job, and I was I was embarrassed. I said, you must think I'm a wimp. What I'm calling courage, where I'm calling pain, it's not as big as what you face. Therefore, I must discount myself." And she so graciously said, "Allegra, pain is not a competition. My pain changed me, and your pain will change you." And it's the same for courage. Courage changes me, and it changes you. It's not a competition. We need everybody right now to have courage.
So, Allegra, thanks for sharing that. And I'd like to tell the audience about a 6-year-old and his courage and how our movement started. So there's no simple way to say this. On December 14th, 2012, um, a shooter blasted into Jesse's classroom, dropped his gun clip, put in another one, and his gun jammed. And in that split second, Jesse yelled, "Run." And as a result, 9 of his classmates are alive today. So now you may wonder how we know this. And it's because the police officers interviewed the children that escaped. And they said, "Jesse told us to run." So this was courage with a capital C. And this little guy was 6 years old. He had courage and a sense of purpose. Other than that, he didn't have anything that we don't have. So that courage, the reason we tell this story is that it's in all of us. And from this story, with this great amount of courage, we just want to let you know that Jesse's now on the short list for the Presidential Medal of Freedom. So if you're close to your congressional representative, we are excited about that. But again, it's within all of us. So Allegra, why don't you tell us a little bit about Viktor Frankl?
Oh, I'm still stunned about the Jesse story. I've only heard it a couple dozen times, and it never fails to strike me that a 6-year-old could summon up such courage. And one of the questions is, how do you summon up such courage? Viktor Frankl gave us some insight. Now, he was a psychiatrist in the 1940s, and he was imprisoned by the Nazi Germans in a labor camp. And he used his time to, of course, do labor. He was tortured. He was under terrible conditions, but he also used his time to study the human soul. And he made this observation that between stimulus and response, there is a space. And in that space lies our freedom and our power to choose our response. And in our response lies our growth and our freedom. Now, he didn't say it's going to be an easy choice. He didn't say it's going to come naturally. He just said we do have that space. And when I was talking with Jesse's mom, Scarlett, and Jerry earlier this week, I was curious what do we think gave Jesse this courage? Jesse had actually been given the stimulus of active shooter training 2 weeks before the Sandy Hook massacre. So this little child was given advice about what to do. He did not follow it. Jesse also asked his mother for advice. What do I do if there's an active shooter? And he asked this about 1 week before the massacre. And she said, well, you run in a zigzag manner so the shooter may not be able to shoot you. But Jesse didn't follow that advice either, not even from his beloved mother. He made a courageous choice that saved 9 of his classmates. And what we can figure out was that he had the space that Viktor Frankl says we all have. But what he filled that space with was a life purpose, and his life purpose was to save his classmates. It wasn't to save himself. It wasn't to follow instructions. It was to save his classmates. And his purpose determined his response. So I'd like to talk for a minute about the power of positive purpose for you, because nothing fuels courage like positive purpose. Now, according to Duke University Business School professor Theodore Ryan, one of our most important thoughts is, who am I? And who do I want to become? That's your why. Who am I? Why am I here? Who do I want to become? Those thoughts shape your purpose. When you know your why, having courage is a whole bunch easier. Your purpose will keep you grounded when you want to throw up because you're stressed out, or your teammate really is getting on your nerves and you want to just lash out at them versus staying on task and doing the job that needs to be done. A strong sense of purpose means that the voices in your heads do not, in my head, your head, we all have them, they don't stop us from doing what we need to do to figure out that next step. Sometimes that next step is very difficult. It's telling a student that you're going to disappoint them, not give them what they want, or a parent that you can't help them. Sometimes it's, your purpose is using new technology, or the courage you need is to use the new technology so that you can connect with people you need to connect with. And sometimes you need courage just to go to the grocery store, but your purpose helps you go to the grocery store and deal with the fear of getting COVID-19, because you know that that purpose is really important and you're going to follow through with that purpose, and you need courage, and you're going to summon up your courage to do that. So purpose is our best friend in times like today when we really do not know what tomorrow holds.
So, this is a big project. And when it comes to purpose, when it comes to planning, if you don't create it, as Stephen Covey says, others will create it for you. So in our coronavirus environment right now, the world has changed, and your old plan, your old purpose might be obsolete. So we're going to pause here so that you can focus on your purpose and jot down some notes, because later on, what we're hoping you'll do after this webinar is go back and really think about it and write it down and live by it. So while we're pausing, Allegra, let me ask you, what's your positive purpose regarding work?
Well, I've done a lot of things, Jerry, in my life, and a lot of people say, what connects everything? But as a child and as a teen, I lived through a lot of things which showed people not living their best life, people not living in flourishing communities. And when you live in a community that is going through some tough times and you find some answers about how communities work well, oh boy, it's just so exciting. You want people to flourish. You want humans to be healthy. You want to show them what a healthy human is and help them be healthy. You want to show your team what health looks like, and you want to show your community what health looks like, because when people are healthy, good things can happen. And when people are not healthy, they can't. And human potential is limited, and my potential is limited. So my purpose in life is to help people, teams, and communities to flourish. And it's so important to me. I get up every day excited to do it. And I'm really willing to learn a lot, go different places in order to have that happen. What about you, Jerry?
I mean, after 30 years in financial services and working to teach people how to save for retirement, and spending most of my time in the pension business, it was rewarding, but it's not nearly the mission that this is. The tools, the skills that the Choose Love movement brings to the table, I've made it my mission to teach throughout the world. So I'm joining Scarlett in her mission to raise the level of emotional and social intelligence focused on the workplace, at least here for me, and make sure that as many people as possible can benefit from this, because these skills and this message is truly transformative. It's change from the inside out. And from the moment you hear our presentations, it's truly transformative and can change the way you look at things one day at a time. And again, truly something that has an impact in the world.
One of the poems that made a big difference to me and so many others, is by Mary Oliver. She won a Pulitzer Prize, and she has this beautiful question at the end of one of her poems. Tell me, what is it you plan to do with your one wild and precious life? And we put Jesse's picture beside it because this beautiful 6-year-old said, what I'm going to do with my wild and precious life is to save other people. And that is a wonderful, wonderful goal. It's a courageous one. It's a very costly one. And sometimes we think too small, but the pandemic has given us an opportunity to really think big and to say, okay, uh, put our cards on the table. Let's see what matters. Not everything needs to matter, but what really matters to us, and what are we going to do with that? And that purpose gives us a bunch of energy once we really focus on it. One of the things we ask is that people do something, and in the business world, we call it your personal leadership brand or your credo by which you live. And that question is, given who I am, what do I want to do? And what are the couple core values that you want to affirm? So it's not enough to want to do something. You need to do it in a way that you practice your values. So your values might be excellence, integrity. One of mine is loving kindness. And you can't have loving kindness without integrity. You can't love someone, but not be willing to have those tough conversations with them when they're not living up to what they could do. So we ask, you're thinking about your positive purpose, that you jot these questions down. What do I want to accomplish? What are my values that I want to affirm? When we do this, it helps ground us in what we need to do. We talked about how it gives us courage, but there's another element of courage that is needed, and that is optimism. Optimism is the belief that it is the belief that the right and brave thing to do is to try. Now, it doesn't mean that if you try, it's going to work. But if you think you're sunk, you can't change your situation. We need you to have optimism. We need you to believe that you can try. So optimism might say, look, let's look at the pandemic. It's causing our world to crumble. We're not getting our old world back. Thinking that way is not going to be very helpful. It's like putting your head in the sand. Optimism doesn't say we don't have a pandemic. It says, okay, there might be a 1% chance that a certain future is possible given all the changes. And maybe there's a 1% chance that I can reach my goal of helping a community flourish, or whatever your goal is. And I'm going to take it seriously that it's just 1%. What do I need to do to make that 1% work? And you get very clear and very specific about what needs to be done, because you're looking at a very realistic sense of what is possible. And you see that low percentage point, and you say, okay, I'm going to be very intentional about what happens. And when you have an optimistic spirit, your confidence grows, your belief in your agency grows, and that sometimes that allows good things to happen. Without optimism, nothing good can happen because you've already given up. Now, here's what, for the Choose Love movement, optimism looks like in the face of painful reality. Scarlett's son, Jesse, is very sadly not coming back to life. And that is the one thing that she would like to change. But that's not changing. It's very painful. It's a very painful reality. But in the face of this unrelenting truth, Scarlett believes that there's a better way for our society to live. And she's optimistic about that, even though she was not getting the one thing she wanted most in this world. She wasn't going to be able to get that. But what was born was a sense that she could have a flourishing life. She's not getting the life she wanted, but she can flourish in this new life with the Choose Love movement. And that movement has now reached 1.7 million people and all of us on this webinar. She changed the odds of getting a flourishing life in her favor by having an optimistic spirit. Her optimism in the face of unbearable pain is the reason why we're here today talking about courage.
So when we start taking a look at optimism and purpose, we know that thoughts and beliefs guide our behavior. And we know that to take control of our behavior, we very often need to guide our thoughts and beliefs. So what does that and grounds it, like Allegra said, is our sense of purpose. But optimism can be hard. And what's hard about it is that your brain is hardwired to survive. We weren't necessarily evolutionarily designed to be happy. We were designed to survive. So in a crisis, the fight or flight reflex activates. And this can make you feel distressed and anxious and worried. And to make matters worse, that negative bias is hardwired inside us, just like survival. So I want you to think of it as a built-in pessimist or inner doomsday prepper, for want of a better metaphor, that can drive your thoughts and feelings. As an insurance guy, I like to think of it as the ultimate in risk management. So, optimism can be hard, and fixating on the news and some of the things that you hear can actually make it worse. So, to kind of close on that thought, don't make it worse. Don't fixate on the news. Keep in mind that while optimism is hard, 87% of everything that we worry about never happens.
Think about it this way. Who or what are you going to let veto your life? What excuses, what negative biases and excuses would you feel comfortable giving to someone like Jesse or one of your own heroes about why you can't live into your life purpose? And when you ask yourself, sometimes we feel a little embarrassed because we see what excuses other people are not accepting. They're not accepting those voices in their head. They're not accepting small challenges. They say, yeah, you know what? That's a problem to be solved. And when we think about, when we honor, hey, we do have these voices telling us, it could be a family member, it could be our own selves, our own psyches, telling us that, hey, play it safe. Are you sure? This is really scary. We need to remember our heroes who said, yes, this is indeed scary, but let's figure out how to solve this problem.
So if I understand what you're saying, Allegra, is that we shouldn't listen to our inner, middle school or high school bully or that inner mean girl inside us that tells us not to do something, or that focuses on the negatives, that we're not up to it.
Absolutely. We need to be prudent. So if there is some kernel of truth in there, we need to know it. It's wise to listen, but not to give them the veto power. So if we're able to distill what's wise, here's an example. I'm a poet, and I've written a novel. And when people critique that novel, I always listen to the kernel of truth that they're sharing. I don't take all of that, all of their criticism. I take what is most helpful to me in creating that piece of art so that it will be the best possible. It's just not letting them veto it. Sometimes those voices have wisdom, and we need to say, thank you. I appreciate what you're sharing with me because you're keeping me from one particular problem, but I'm not going to not move forward with my life purpose. I only have one wild and precious life, and I'm going to make something of it.
Excellent. And thank you for sharing that. We can't always choose what happens to us, but we can choose how we respond. And this is one of the foundations of our teaching. So, when you think about it, courage is a muscle. And it requires exercise. We build that courage by exercising it every day. And it could be something small. Should I speak up in this meeting? Or should I, keep the speed limit down to, this is my weakness, keep the speed limit down to 55, 60 when I'm driving on a road where nobody is on it at all. It takes courage to do that, because you just want to go ahead and let the car rip some days, but at least that's from my standpoint. A small act of courage is more common and more important day to day. So this picture's up here because a couple of years ago, after 25 years of being on the road and covering 3 states and stopping at McDonald's for at least 1 or 2 meals a day, um, Dunkin' Donuts on occasion, which is really big up here in the Northeast. I started to run into a cholesterol problem and push 190 pounds. So I had to do something about that. And doing something about it meant going for a walk today. Walks turned into running. And then I set the goal to run a 5K. This particular 5K was for Jesse's teacher, who was also killed that day. And it took 2 years of running 2 miles a day, every other day, rain or shine, to run that. And so this is a picture of my wife and I standing outside the start for the 5K with Chief Meteorologist Gil Simmons from Channel 8 here in Connecticut. In that course, by the way, I lost 30 pounds. I still run today. It's still something I recommend, but without the courage to do it, I wouldn't be here in as good shape as I'm in. So.
For me, when we think about small acts of courage, I think about how those build up over time. And what I'd like to share is a time when my courage didn't come very naturally, and it was a situation that didn't start out so promising at first. There's a cartoon here about team coaching that says, I'm confident that with the right mix of role-playing exercises and prescription medication, we'll make a cohesive team. And I don't know if anybody who's been on a team has probably felt that way at some point. Like, how are we going to cohere as a team? Well, I just finished a 4-year project helping soldiers at the largest military installation in the world build a park for their families to rebond in between deployments. It's a real challenge, and these are very heavily deployed soldiers over a period of years. And so they leave their family and they come back. Now, I'd like you to keep that in mind as you listen to my story, because we right now are in social isolation, and we're not with our beloved friends, our beloved community. And when we come back, they will have changed, and you'll probably notice that, and you will have changed, and you should notice that as well. And that's a small situation that is what these soldiers face all the time. They deploy into a stressful situation, they change, they come back, their families have changed, they've grown. And so the challenge was, how do you help reattach these intimate bonds? And I used all of my skills, all of my courage, all of my optimism to help me build basically Mr. Rogers' neighborhood for Special Forces and 82nd Airborne families. The team I worked with was comprised of amazing military families and amazing soldiers. You walk in knowing that they move billions of dollars, the soldiers at least move billions of dollars in their jobs. They leap tall mountains, and that is not a metaphor at this point. They are trained to be physically in shape that I will never be in. They do some of the most toughest and the most brutal work on earth. They're highly competitive. Now, I grew up in the nonviolent civil rights movements of the world. I spent a lot of time in Selma, Alabama, being taught by people who worked with Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And I come from a nonviolent background, and I'm working with some very violent people, professionally violent, not personally violent. So the task, though, was not to replicate these soldiers who are at the top of the top. They didn't need another hero. They needed somebody to help them reattach to their families. And this could be very intimidating, especially if I was trying to be them. I would fail being them. And so I needed to have the courage to be myself. I had to tell them a couple things. One was that we would not follow the money. And they said, "You're a business person. Don't you say, will you go after the money?" But I said, no, we need to do what the right thing is. And I had seen from working in the nonviolent hospice movement where the best innovations came from doing the right thing and then seeing if you could get money to do the right thing and not to follow the money of what was already there. The money at the time when we started there was all for post-traumatic disorder work. And our soldiers, needed to reattach to their families. This was not a matter of some kind of disorder that only 11% of the population gets anyway. It was a very different task, and so I said we would not follow the money. When a lot of people would say, "Hey, you're supposed to follow the money because you want things funded," but we were not going to do that. We were going to do what was right. I also was not going to people please. It would be very easy to listen to these soldiers talk about how they do things at work and replicate that culture. I had to time and time again say, I'm not here to replicate your culture. Replicating your culture got you in this process in the first place where your families won't talk with you. We need to build Mr. Rogers' neighborhood, not your office. Another element would be that just very specific things that would show me as maybe in a wimp-like status would be something that I would have to again and again sign up for. So I had to tell a soldier who was one of the elite soldiers, we will not charge our flamethrowers in the kitchen. And he couldn't see what was wrong with doing that. But I had to be kind of the nanny that, no, we're not going to have weapons in this part of the world, in this part of what we're doing.
The hamburgers cook more quickly with a flamethrower.
They sure do. Flamethrowers can be a lot of fun at a park, but what we needed to do was to observe proper
Right.
time and place things. I also needed to be willing to do the honest and loving thing, and sometimes that honest and loving thing was to set a standard that the people I was with did not like. For instance, one time I had a Gold Star widow who I needed to dismiss from the service. Now, who wants to walk into work and say, I need to ask a Gold Star widow to not be part of our community? But that was the right thing to do. It was actually the right thing for her. She went through a period of growth afterwards that she would not have ever gone through unless she had been challenged in the way that I challenged her. So this was a very difficult situation for me. I'm going to show you a few pictures of the park. You see, it's a very rustic park with people playing together. We worked with the Ninja Warrior architects to create some amazing competitive games. But a lot of this was just spending time reattaching parents to children in a way that was very fun. And I'll suggest to you that life is certainly much more than suffering, much more than having to show courage. And one of the nice things about doing things that allow you to play is that it's a fun way to reattach. You don't have to unpack your heart, you don't have to go through analysis. You just say, let's get together and play. And this is what soldiers found themselves over and over again returning to as something that was very healthy. This model now is seen as one of the best practices across the military. It's being espoused by top military leaders, and they're suggesting as filling out prescriptions essentially for their soldiers, please go to Rick's Place near Fort Bragg and reconnect with your family there.
So, Deborah, if I hear what you're saying, is it takes a lot of courage to be outside your comfort zone with some of the people around you when they have different personalities, so that you can reach a goal that was set up as a purpose for that organization, but also as well so that it doesn't conflict with your purpose and your background in life, correct?
Right. I had to be willing to be myself
Mhm.
with people who are not like me in order to uh, meet our purpose. And I love this because it brought so much learning to me. I had to use so many of my social and emotional learning skills with people who they like to fight, so they want to provoke me, and it's easy to get drawn in.
Mhm.
But when I look at this child on the screen, when I look at her happiness, her utter delight in playing with what's called a foam machine, it's just a mountain of foam that you run into. Uh, that brings so many smiles to my face, and I say, "I'm going to run through any brick wall I need to," hopefully not so many more, but I'm gonna do whatever I need to do to get that smile on that child's face. And when you have a good purpose and you have the energy of optimism, then you start figuring things out. You don't give up who the essence of yourself. You find a new way of being with people who aren't like you, and then there's just such great energy when things really start to work. One thing I'm going to offer here is about friendship. I just showed you what soldiers do. They seek friends and they seek to retie intimately into communities. You do this with friends. And a lot of times we use that term friends lightly. We don't say specifically what a friend is. We don't need to have that many friends, but we want friends who do what you see on the slide. They comfort you, they can help you dream bigger dreams, and they have permission to tell us when we need to change. That's very important because if a friend just tells you you're great all the time, or if a friend is leading you into a difficult path that's not really good for you, you need to be able to have that repair of honest conversations. So, not many people are allowed to do this for any one person, but you should have a few people who are your friends because friends can give you courage when you fall down, when that candle inside of you goes out. You need someone to relight it. And that's what friends can do for us. Here's a picture that I love about friends standing with us in the rain. There's a lot of rain right now in our lives. And we need just one or two friends to be with us. It helps us bolster our courage. Also, it's a two-way street. We need to do that for them.
How can you not smile when you see that picture? You know,
Well, I love it. I don't know if I would share it with my soldiers, but I'm sharing it with you all.
you know, in short, courage and optimism kind of go together. It's the bravery to say, look, I've got this. I can handle this. You may have those moments where you don't feel like you do, but overall, you can handle this.
Yeah.
Which takes us to my friend here, Winston Churchill. He died the year I was born. I would have loved to have met him. I love this quote: "Success is not final. Failure is not fatal. It's the courage to continue that counts." I don't know what our audience knows about Winston Churchill. I've studied him in depth. There's a lot about him. He was a journalist. He was a war hero. He wrote a lot. He wrote not only more published words than William Shakespeare, not more published words than Charles Dickens, but more than the two of them combined. He was known for his speaking ability, but it wasn't like it was all given to him. He didn't, he worked hard at these. For a man who was a great speaker, he had a lisp. He had to overcome a speech impediment. He was, as head of the British Admiralty in World War I, held responsible for one of the greatest tragedies in British military history, if you've ever heard of Gallipoli. He thought his career was over, and yet he came back and led the British Empire out of World War II. And then shortly after, the British Empire was thrown out of office again, and still had the courage to continue on. When we talk about the Iron Curtain, that is, those are words that we got from him. He also said, courage makes all other virtues possible. So we have him here because he embodies that. Inside each one of us is a Winston Churchill who knows the right thing to do and knows what our purpose is and is not going to take no for an answer. He's optimistic enough to continue on.
Jerry, one of the most wonderful things I think about the quote, "Success is not final, failure is not fatal." It's so merciful. I just love the mercy in that quote because sometimes we do something and we are on the top of the world and we just want everything to stop right now. But something else is going to happen, and the people who are up right now will be down tomorrow. And it's really important to know that.
Oh,
But the mercy of failure is not fatal is something that's so important because despair will kill our souls. And we have to believe, that's the optimism, that this is not fatal. So if we have a failure, if we get laid off from our jobs, if the sale doesn't go through, if something just completely botches through, it's not fatal. And that's what I love about the Choose Love movement is when Jesse died, but even that is not fatal because the spirit that he unleashed is going across the world through this movement.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So it takes us to the question, how are you feeling now on a scale of 1 to 10? What shifted?
Jerry, where are you?
I'm at about an 8 because we've worked on this, for a long time now, and we seem to have actually found all the slides. We
Yes.
got everybody on.
Yeah.
All the technology problems seem to crop up at about 10 minutes before we go live. But how
I
about yourself?
Yeah, I'm at an 8 with you, and I'm so grateful. And right now, actually, what I'm feeling is gratitude. Gratitude to our audience to be able to share the Choose Love movement, that you actually wanted to come and be in this space with us. Gratitude to all the people at the Choose Love movement who made this work. And gratitude to you, Jerry, for inviting me in.
Uh, Allegra, we're excited to have you. And gratitude. This is an unscripted moment, so we can watch out for what's
Yeah.
going to happen here. But gratitude, and you can change the slide.
Okay.
It's a great mind shifter. If you're in a position where you're feeling very anxious and very afraid, it's a good moment to start building the space, like Viktor Frankl talked about, between stimulus and response. And gratitude can help you build that space. It's a great mind shifter. We've talked about it in some of the webinars. They are recorded. So if you want to see some of what we have, you can reach out to us. But to kind of recap, as we've talked about courage today, some of the skills are to reflect, think about the past when you've shown courage. That feeling has a way of kind of rekindling your ability to feel courage again. Revisit your personal leadership brand or credo. It's a great time to take stock of the world, of what's really important to you, and rebuild that purpose. Practice optimism. Fortune goes as a wheel. Some days you're on top, some days you're on the bottom, but it does change. And remember that courage comes in all sizes, whether it's just the everyday act of moving forward or great courage that comes out all at once. It is something that comes in all sizes, and to seek the help of your wholesome friends that help you become a better person. Which would take us to a little bit of some announcements about what's next. Now, Choose Love for the Workplace will be doing webinars every Wednesday in the month of April. If you look at the website, there are some teasers out there for our future subjects. Next week, we're going to be talking about what we think, and this is what we think, is coming after the pandemic, how the world will change, and what are some ways that you can reposition yourself and your business to succeed in what will be a new world. And then help, if you've liked what you've heard and you've gotten something out of it, help others access this material. Let them know it's out there. Let them know that we're continuing this. Share it on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, and become part of the solution. And by becoming part of the solution, we mean, and I think this would be on the next slide, what is Choose Love for the Workplace? So our organization within the Choose Love movement works on leadership coaching. We put together customized seminars and workshops for businesses depending on what they need and what would help their people succeed. We do team building and consulting where we can turn a group of coworkers into an elite team. And we offer daily reminders that you can opt in for about what's valuable in your business and what's important. So what I would say is let's grab a virtual cup of coffee and talk. You can call us for a free consultation, and you can visit our website, www.chooselovemovement.org, for instructions on how to reach us. Now, be part of the solution. Every dollar that you donate goes to keep kids safe. $1 keeps one child safe in school for a year. So for $25, you can support a whole classroom. And if you're willing to support 2 classrooms with a $50 donation, we'll send you a Choose Love journal. A $100 donation, which would support an entire grade, will send you the journal and a hat. And for a $250 donation or more, it's always okay to donate more. We'll send you a signed copy by Scarlett with a personal message to you of her book, Nurturing Healing Love. And so with that, we look forward to seeing you next week. We hope you got a lot out of the webinar. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us. My email address is jerry@jessieLewisChooseLoveMovement.org. And I'm sorry, at jessieLewisChooseLove.org. You would think I would know my email by now. Or you can reach Allegra at jessieLewisChooseLove.org. So thank you very much.